Welcome, everybody, and we are fired up for another sensational college football matchup. Nobody at home today who can stake their claim in this neutral site showdown. Today, a top 25 matchup on hand, two of college football's premier teams preparing to square off. As we'll see, the number 6 team in the country, the Texas Longhorns, taking on the 15th ranked team in the land, the Alabama Crimson Tide. For EA Sports College Football, I'm Reese Davis, David Pollack and Jesse Palmer with me. Guys, it's time to get it going. Alabama about to kick off to get things started. From inside the 15, here comes the return. He was hoping for something a little more dynamic, that they'd get him on the ground at the 20. The defense going to stop the... Now they want to make sure they have everybody on the same page. Offense set on first down. They'll crank up this drive with the pass. Quick completion on the out route. He's run out of bounds, but not before turning in a big pickup and moving the sticks for a first down. Well, they wasted no time making sure that their star touched the ball and felt the game early.
And how about the defense? You've been game planning for this guy all week long. You knew they were going to feature him. The first play, you give up a play to him. That DC's over there scratching his head and saying some words that I can't say on the airway.
Touch pass on the run. The defense wouldn't let him loose there, and it was a completion, but they lost yardage.
You got to fight fire with fire. You got to fight speed with speed. There's a receiver with the ball out in the open field trying to get the corner, but a cornerback with the same type of speed and athleticism able to make the tackle. Nice job.
A confident, tough, efficient run gets it up to the 44.
And a nice job by the running back, finding space, getting downhill, making the good run. Great job finishing with his pads.
Third and short from the 44, and we might know if they plan to go for it on fourth down by what they call here. They'll try to get it through the air. Scrambling away. Quarterback all over the place trying to make a play, but eventually he goes down. The offense stays on the field. Opening drive, still in their own territory. They'll go for it on 4th down. Makes the grab, and he's got the first. They've got it to the 49-yard line, and they'll move the chains. They were willing to spin that wheel of fortune in their own territory, and it paid off.
And it came up good. I mean, I think you see the aggressiveness by these offenses now, willing to go for it on their own territory, and I like it because they got it.
Looking to throw, it's Ewers. Going for it all. And they dialed up a shot play, but they couldn't make the connection.
And good job by the defense. The defense clearly knew where they were going with the football. Double coverage out wide, making sure they don't give up a touchdown to that guy. Nice job by the defense.
Wants to throw on 2nd down. It's complete. Finally run out of bounds, but he has this offense rolling with a 1st down.
Receivers always have to be so careful around the sideline to not step out accidentally, so give that receiver credit. Nice job on the route to bring the ball in while on a tight route.
The Longhorns come to the line with a fresh set of downs. And that incomplete pass caused by the big hit on 1st down, 2nd down coming.
Well, this defense knew coming in they were going to see some RPO, they were going to see some quick game, and nice job there taking the throw away from the quarterback.
Right back up top on 2nd and 10. Got the quick pass. Oh, he dropped it! And they are fortunate to avoid the turnover as the fumble goes out of bounds.
Ooh, offense really lucky there. Ball on the ground. Everybody's trying to make a scramble for it, and it just goes out of bounds. So the offense lucky to maintain possession.
They'll leave it with him. Able to pick up a couple down to the 27. And the Longhorns moving quickly to the line. On 2nd down, he'll let it fly. Flushed out of the pocket. He'll throw one to his right. Fires and picked off. And they'll close in on him after a good return on the interception.
And how about that play by the defense here early in this game, opening drive, facing one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football, and they're able to get an interception. That is going to be massive for their confidence in this game.
Looking for a productive play on 1st down. Quarterback will audible. To the air, it's Milroe. Fires to the big fella. After the pickup of 9, it's 2nd and 1. Really good concept there to get things going and use the tight end early.
Yeah, I mean, just such a great job on 1st down, setting up an easier 2nd down. Understanding I don't always have to push the ball down the field, but see the tight end, make the throw. No, it's not a big gain. It makes life really easy on me on 2nd down.
Now on 2nd down. He's looking to throw. Caught near the sticks. It's Miller.
You blitz me, I'm getting the ball out of my hands. Really good job understanding that by the offensive coordinator, this quarterback, seeing the blitz, getting the ball to a playmaker, letting him do some damage. And more importantly, I don't have to throw it way down the field. Just get the 1st down.
And he was hit just as he released it, and it falls to the turf.
Pressure got to the QB that time. He was trying to find his check down out of the backfield, but the hit forced the incompletion.
On 2nd down, he'll let it fly. Quarterback now breaking the field. Trying to make magic with his feet. Nice run there to keep things moving before they force him out of bounds.
Well, great job there by the defense because they weren't able to get him sacked right away, but you saw the coverage in the back end. Nowhere for the quarterback to throw the football. Didn't get the sack, obviously. You don't get the negative play, but you also don't give up a big one. You're feeling pretty good about where you are right now in this drive.
Looking to buy time. He's got it downfield for a huge gain. Just carving up this defense and getting it down to the 24.
When you're a playmaker like this guy is, your coaches are going to dial up plays intended for you, especially on third down. That's what you saw in that last play. There was no question where the quarterback was going with that football. All week long, they decided on the biggest downs of this game, we're going to target our best player, and we're going to make sure that he gets looks. It doesn't matter what the coverage is. You saw it right there on that play.
The offense threatening, close to the end zone now with a new set of downs.
That's the end of the first quarter. And after one, we're scoreless.
They'll try to open the quarter by cashing in on this big opportunity deep in the red zone. Scanning the field, it's Milroe. Got out of trouble, got rid of it. Finds his big tight end. And he'll step across the sidelines after making a good gain on that one.
I'll say this, man. In college football, you see a lot of bad tackling. You didn't see it right there. That was an awesome job. First off, being there at the point of attack. Once the tight end made the catch, there was no doubt he was going down. Great job form tackle.
Quarterback changing the plays at the line. He'll run it to the right, looking for the goal line. Into the end zone he goes. Touchdown, Crimson Tide. Man, did he show some hops for that one.
Some serious vertical right there. I tell you what, everybody in front of you, hey, I'll go by air if I need to. Good job getting in the air, getting the touchdown.
About to kick it away after scoring the touchdown. And that is not the optimal solution there. The kickoff out of bounds, and the offense will have a little bit easier time of things. First down here for the offense. He's going to pass. Quick completion on the out. Really nice job there by both guys to throw and the catch to work that defense and get the first down.
And man coverage, when they get up in your face, they make things hard. You want to be able to attack the whole field and get them leaning one direction and then break outside like you did there. Nice out route connection, nice chemistry between quarterback and wide receiver.
And they try the middle of this stout defense, and they rise to the challenge. Looking to throw on second down. That's caught. It's Blue.
And a great job by the QB finding the running back, get him the football where he can do some damage after the catch, and most importantly, get the first down.
The clock has reached the 2-minute mark, and they have a chance to at least cut into this lead before the break. The Longhorns will have it 1st and 10. Off the RPO, complete.
And that's why QBs love their tight ends so much, right? Especially when they're athletic, because they make short throws turn into long gains. Because of his ability after the catch, it's so unique and special. He is dominant in this offense.
Power football with the run. And the Longhorns will keep this drive going. The defense uses their second timeout of the half as they try to get their act together. Just inside the red zone, 1st and 10 from the 19. Might as well run him until they stop him. He's got it again. Quick timeout by the defense here, trying to make sure everyone has the same call.
How about the defender being a heat-seeking missile? He was on radar lock. He found the football and flew down with some bad intentions.
That completion will take them inside the 10 to the 9-yard line.
Nice job decision-making by the quarterback there in the RPO, not handing it off, knowing he had to throw it, but then also understanding his open guy was going to be in the right flat.
Looking downfield, it's Ewers. Gets it out fast. And there is nothing doing on that one. You got the completion and nothing else to show for it.
Well, there was really nowhere to go for the quarterback with that football. He's just trying to check it down to his running back, and the defense was there, and they made the play.
Defense rolls up deep in its own end on that last play. Now a 2nd and long coming. He's looking to throw. Reels it in the end zone. Touchdown, Texas! Lining up for the PAT. And it's no good, and they're still down by 1. You get that touchdown right before the half, build the momentum, and the last thing you need to do is mess it up by allowing a big kickoff return. The kickoff bounces through the end zone. They'll bring it out to the 25. So the offense has had enough. They'll take a knee and wrap up this first half. No surprise. Looks as if they'll be content just to head to the locker room. And that'll bring us to the end of the first half as we head to the studio for halftime. They're lining up to boot it away.
Number 45.
The ball squirts through the end zone. That'll be a touchback. They'll bring it out to the 25. The Tide offense rolls onto the field. The sledding has been tough. Scores have been at a premium, Jesse, and every possession seems like it could switch the momentum of the game.
Yeah, Reese, for this offense, just feels like they just haven't been as physical. And for this offensive coordinator, David, he's having to go deep into the playbook just to try to generate a first down.
Well, and the good thing is there's not a ton of game pressure because the other side's not scoring either. But if you can find that one thing, that get that one positive play, and then maybe you get those juices going, then something can start to build.
Dropping back, it's Milroe. Got his man quickly. Strikes the blow. That defense got gassed, but they finally get him to the turf at the 47. A productive play is one that gets you at least halfway to another first down here on 1st and 10. Looking to move it through the air. Got it in the middle, it's Williams. He's there to make the stop, but the damage has been done as they pick up the first down on the throw and catch.
It's a really nice-looking throw. This dude is a weapon in this offense at the quarterback position. It's so funny, I think back to guys like Greg McElroy and A.J. McCarron, guys that may or may not have unfairly been tabbed as game managers. And then you think of Jalen Hurts, Tua, and Bryce Young in recent years, and just how dynamic and versatile these guys were at the position and how they've really helped take this offense to the next level. Watching this guy reminds me a little bit of that.
They're bringing heat. And he was hit just as he was releasing the pass, and it falls to the ground incomplete.
And finally, the defense is able to get some pressure on this quarterback. They had been trying all game long different ways to affect him. Weren't able to get there. But on that play, because of the pressure, it affected his accuracy, and that's why the ball falls in.
Now the quarterback changing the original play call. They keep attacking through the air. Makes a connection. And he's knocked down immediately, but not before he moves the chains.
Yeah, I love that the QB understood, I'm going to put some stank on this. I'm going to throw it as hard as I can quickly, right when he's breaking out of that curl. Nice job getting it to him quick so he could get a first down.
Wants to throw on first down. Catch in the middle, it's Hale. That completion will take it close to the 5-yard line. They'll mark it at the 6.
And after giving up that completion, guys, I wonder if the defense is going to decide to stay in zone or maybe mix things up, a little more man coverage, maybe blitz.
To the air, it's Milroe. He wants it all. Can't make the grab as he was looking for his man right at the goal line.
Another incompletion, and I've said that a lot, and these teams are just struggling. I mean, The offense just doesn't know what to do. Nothing's working. Ground game, throw game. It's kind of been a rock fight on both sides.
He's looking for a man on second down. Had it in his hands for the score and let it fall to the turf. It'll be third down. About to have the ninth snap on this drive. You don't want to settle for a field goal. On third and goal, they'll try to throw it in. He's snapped. So, touchdown, Alabama!
And it's money time. It's third and goal. You got the option. You can run the football, still be balanced, use the big fella, the tight end. I love it down here because he can act like he's blocking, slip out, and get open. And then he's got that big body. You just throw it to him, and he does the rest.
And the extra point is good. Almost ready to kick it away after scoring the touchdown. No return coming. He'll call for the fair catch. And here comes the Texas offense back on the field. Now they need to put something together to answer that last score.
There's a lot of pressure, too, on this offense to have to execute at a high level. They've got to score points, David, but they can't go too fast because their defense right now is tied.
And I think that's the difficulty being a play caller. Like, I have to balance all of those things. My defense is a little bit tired. I can't get on the field, but I got to be aggressive because this is a back-and-forth type game, so a lot to process and think about.
Last incompletion leaves them still sitting at their own 25 with 2nd and 10. To throw, it's Ewers. Fires to the right. Right on the money to the outside. He dragged the toe, and how about the ball placement? Only the receiver could get it.
It's a really nice-looking catch, you know, and it's shocking when you think about Texas Longhorn football. Not a lot of names jump out at you when you think about great wide receivers here, right? Yeah, Roy Williams, Jordan Shipley, not too many. This guy, though, I think has a chance to be special. This guy could go down in Texas history as one of the all-time greats.
The Longhorns want to crank the tempo. Wide receiver now comes in motion. Looking for a gap. It's Blue. He's knocked down in the backfield. He'll lose a couple. That linebacker saw the express lane right to the ball carrier.
And a great job by the defensive line, getting some push, making them use their resources on him. Linebacker comes free, boom, and making the backfield for a tackle for a loss.
Let's see what they find in the playbook for 3rd and long from the 43. From the gun, wants to pass. Good timing on the quick out. He goes out of bounds after the big play, but there is a penalty marker on the field. Let's see what that one's about. The Longhorns will line it up on 1st and 10. He wants to throw. Caught near the sideline. It's Golden. And he'll run across the sidelines after the good gain.
Well, you can tell those two have been practicing the out route all off-season long. They look like they could have completed that in their sleep.
Now here on 2nd down, see if they keep tossing it around. Dropping back, it's Ewers. Zings it complete to the right. Excellent job working through the air there, finding a hole in that defense and picking up a 1st down.
I like the running back there on the route, the patience he showed, really setting it up. He got to the defender, was able to put his foot in the ground, get some separation, catch it, and turn upfield for the 1st.
The give to the back. He got a bunch and looked close to getting a lot more, but he's got the 1st down. And the Longhorns have pushed it inside the 20. They're going to ride this running back. And they're finally able to get him on the ground at the 1. Time winding down in the quarter as they come to the line. He wants to pass it on 2nd down. And And down he goes back at the 3.
A loss of 3 yards on the play. Brings up 3rd down. That's the end of the 3rd quarter. This is for Alabama 14, Texas 6.
Now facing a 3rd down as they come back to the line after the break. Looking to throw for it. Fires into the end zone. And good coverage there to knock it away and deny the score.
Well, on 3rd and short in field goal range, they dial up the pass play. Quarterback was trying to get through his progressions. There was just simply nobody open. Couldn't make an accurate enough throw. The ball falls incomplete. Now setting up a big decision here on 4th down.
It's a 1-score game late, and they've got to go for it on 4th down. Can't find his man. It'll be incomplete, and that is a heartbreaker this late in the game.
And some people won't like that, but I like aggressiveness, and that's who they are as an offense, so it's okay to be aggressive. But I know one thing now. After that 4th down stop and you're trailing, I'm going to need my defense to be aggressive. It's going to be a big possession right here in the 4th quarter to get me the football back.
And it's picked off. That's the turnover they desperately needed. And after the interception and the turnover, this defense has set its offense up for business.
Man, we needed that so bad. We needed the football, had to get a stop, forcing a turnover. Best case scenario, offense back on the field, trailing in the 4th quarter. Time to go win it.
Quarterback duplicitous in his dealing. Some would even say sneaky.
Nice job by this defense. You kind of knew something like this was coming. Great job. You got to get penetration. First thing you have to do is get him under that center. Make it really hard for him to go forward right now. Nice penetration, stopping the quarterback sneaking its tracks.
They'll keep it on the ground to the left, stiffing the goal line. They bring him down, and he's going to lose a yard on that one.
Yeah, and this offense has to find a way to run the football. And they got to get more creative, whatever that looks like for this offense, something to jumpstart them because nothing really going on the ground.
Yeah, defensively, though, you got to give them credit, too, because they knew that physically they were going to try to be challenged up front. That was a big MO for this offense coming into it. But the defense, they've risen to the occasion. Their front 7 has dominated this entire...
And he takes it to the house. Touchdown, Longhorns! When you're handed a break with unbelievable field position like that, you better finish the deal, and they did.
You saw the quarterback jog on the field. I think he gave a high five to every one of those players coming off that just put them in position to go score that touchdown. That QB knew this was a golden opportunity, and boy, he took advantage of it.
He makes the grab for the 2, and he ties the game here in the 4th. The offense wastes no time getting the timeout call. I don't know about this decision. Tie game, 4th quarter. They're lining up for an onside kick. That's why they call them the hands team. They're able to secure the onside kick.
Well, great job by the hands team receiving there. They're able to spot the kick, fall on it, make sure they keep possession, secure it. Nice job.
Here comes that Alabama offense. Well, let's see if this drive goes better than the last one. They were in and out quickly after the quick pick, David.
Yeah, first play, big mistake, man. Now, let's get this offense in a little bit of a rhythm. Maybe before you open it up again, Palmer, or do you trust him right away?
He seems to me like the guy maybe that just needs to kind of get into the flow of the game. So maybe you get the running game going here and just give him some easy looks to let him get lathered up.
Unloads to the wideout. He's got it.
Great job by the quarterback throwing against zone coverage. You cannot telegraph where you're throwing the football. You cannot eyeball wide receivers. So great job by the quarterback using his eyes, not staring down his guy, and then throwing him open.
It's now 1st and 10 from the 24-yard line. Nice move to keep moving.
It's all tied up. This offensive line, they want the pressure. They want everything to go through them here. They're saying, look, let's just run the ball. Let's get this thing down closer and closer to the goal line. Let's bleed some clock and put ourselves in position to win.
The Tide will get the first down. The defense calls the timeout, and that's their last one of the half.
I love when players understand situations and they understand where the first down marker is and they understand where I got to get to. A lot of people you'll see run north-south and try to bounce out wide and make big plays. Sometimes it's not about making big plays. Sometimes it's about getting that first down to make sure I get an extra set of downs instead of trying to make those big touchdown runs.
I like this guy as a running back because he can run between the tackles and he can also go outside. He can really do it all.
Going to work in the red zone, they can't pick up the first down without getting it into the end zone. Going with the counter play here. That play just never had a chance. They knock him down for a loss of 5.
You know, defensively, you live by the blitz and you die by the blitz. That time, they dialed it up into the run play, and the linebacker able to make a nice tackle.
They get the timeout, and the clock reads 3 seconds.
Timeout.
They'll send out the kicker here. Between the uprights, it's good. They have taken the lead in the final seconds, guys, and the celebration has erupted on the sideline. That last field goal gave them a 3-point lead. Now to see if they can cover the kickoff and keep them out of field goal range. The officials offer the deal, and the coach accepts it. They will take the penalty. First down here for the offense. Corner's going to give them room. Early movement on the offense, and they'll push it back 5 yards. And the offense will take that penalty and move a little bit closer. Here comes the offense on first down. Looking for a man. It's Ewers. Oh, and they get to him. Had a chance for an all-time finish, but the defense put a stop to it, and that's the final play of the game. That's the entire scenario you build up in your head in the backyard. Final drive, everything on the line, and you get the W.
So dang cool. How many times did you do it in your backyard just like that, like you're talking about, Reese, making the play to win the game on the final drive when your team needed it the most, Jesse, just coming through in the clutch.
Yeah, as players, you love this, and that's why you rep it in practice throughout the week, these 2-minute type situations late in games. What are you going to dial up? What can you go execute? What can you lean on in order to get the W here? Great job by the offense.
That's going to do it for us. For Jesse Palmer, David Pollack, our entire broadcast team, I'm Reese Davis. This has been another presentation of EA Sports College Football.